I'm very pleased to be here on My Magical Thing with Athena Alaya, ritual reconstructionist, scholar of Hermeticism, esoteric astrology, and ancient magical traditions, researcher of the neurology of consciousness, and oracle. So, Athena, it's lovely to have you here.
It is lovely to be here. Thank you, Julian. So nice to see you.
Well, good to see you, my friend. Athena, the time has come. Please may we see your magical thing?
Are you ready for the big reveal?
I think so. Let's try it.
So, what I am presenting today is a coyote skull that I use as a ritual vessel for one of the two invocations of Apollo preserved in the Greek magical papyri. I refer to this particular invocation as the invocation of Apollo Lycos, primarily to distinguish it from the familiar solar Apollo of the classical period. Apollo Lycos represented a much older form of worship in ancient Greece, a time period when I will say gods weren't as sanitized as they are today. They took on more complex and fluid registrars. Just giving them, I feel like more robust qualities than the kind of single function deities that we tend to imagine today. In this particular invocation, Apollo is approached through what I would call the lichen threshold principle. So that principle that exists between life and death, the wild and the civilized, the human and the animal, and with respect to neurophysiology and neuroconsciousness between that kind of frontal lobe analytical realm and the limbic system. And when it comes to oracular work, it's tapping into the threshold state that is the most important. So, with respect to magical practices, one of the things that I've really loved and enjoyed about studying magic throughout my lifetime is really trying to formulate an understanding of how different magical practices impact the experience that we have as humans and the different states of consciousness that we seek to achieve depending on that ritual operation. So again, with oracular procedures, there's this very fine line that's towed between different states of consciousness. And this, I think, is really beautifully reflected in this particular invocation. Apollo here is invoked through an entire registrar from the celestial realms all the way through the chthonic realm. And that energy is focused and concentrated through Apollo Lycos and the Voci Magi operation, or the use of barbaric names, to then invoke a daemon, which is temporarily contained within a vessel of a skull. Now, this, of course, kind of brings about the idea of like, oh, well, this is a coyote skull and not a wolf skull. It does call for a wolf skull specifically in the invocation. And so this is a conversation that I get into with people quite a bit. The truth is that in the times, when the PGM, I call it the golden era of the PGM, existed, they didn't have the same type of kind of taxonomical delineations that we do today because of modern science. Really, anything that was that kind of held these canine principles would have been housed within this kind of lichen category. So they didn't have those same type of distinctions that we do. And very interestingly, in Egypt at that time, the primary wolf species at that time was not the Eurasian wolf, the large wolf that we picture today, but what was known as the African red wolf. And unfortunately, the African red wolf is extinct today. But during the period of time where I was doing my background research into the specifics of this particular ritual, what I found is there is a subspecies of North American coyote that has approximately a 98% genetic match to the African red wolf. Um, and so I pulled up morphological scans. I did the whole shebang, and what I found is everything. I mean, the size of the skull, the shape, the dentin impressions, the proportions are all remarkably consistent with the African red wolf. So, for all intents and purposes, this is pretty much essentially what they would have been working with at that particular time. And one of my goals as a ancient ritual reconstructionist is not just to provide the ritual itself, um, with respect to the words, but to build everything from the ground up so I can offer the experience as it would have been at that particular time, as closely as I can. So this was, to me, pretty amazing. It took me about a month, before I finally discovered this, a month of research, and I was just I was just pleased, very pleased to find that I could find something that would be so accurate to what they would have held in their hands at that particular time in history. Um, in order to procure these skulls, I work with a wildlife specialist in Montana in order to ensure they're all ethically sourced. So all the skulls come from animals that are deceased or have been responsibly culled. So there's nothing exploitive. And I would consider myself a bone collector. So I maintain several skulls for different purposes for my own personal working. And if someone like yourself ever traveled to Colorado, and I were to offer this ritual, I would utilize a different skull than what you see here today. That one, the one that I utilize for my personal ritual purposes, has been beetle cleaned and then sun bleached. When I travel, though, especially internationally, I have them prepared differently, just because I have to ensure that I abide by any type of international laws and regulations. So for those, I ensure that they're completely sterilized. The skulls are boiled and then sterilized with hydrogen peroxide, and all organic matter is removed. But once I receive them at that point, I put them through some pretty rigorous preparatory work. I bury the skulls again for a particular period of time, and then after the burial, I take them down to the river and I perform all of the solar invocations and preparations associated with the more celestial realm. So it gives both. And I have, you know, I have found it to be very potent. So this one actually is a representation. I purchased this one specifically for your podcast because I never take out my consecrated ritual items. But this is pretty much exactly the same as real bone. And if I were to travel back out to the UK and see you, this is what you would see. So that is my magical ritual thing.
Athena, that's really excellent and really lovely to hear the way that that reconstructionist process goes deeper than simply trying to kind of copy exactly what was done, because we have to understand that what was done and the taxonomic structure was different at that point. So the way that you've kind of drawn that out with this species and finding a kind of an equivalent that fits as exactly as we can do into that story of the PGM material, that's really, really delightful. That's an excellent thing. Well, thank you very, very much for sharing that object with us. That's really appreciated, my friend. Hopefully, maybe we'll have an opportunity to work together in the British Isles, and I'll get to see the coyote skull over here.
I I would certainly love to meet up with you next time I'm in the UK and give you a private oracular transmission.
That would be fantastic. Athena, thank you so much. That's really appreciated, my friend.
Have a
Hope to
beautiful
see
day.
you soon.